This is the DaneMoore NBA podcast brought to you by Prize Picks. Coming at you Saturday morning. It's March 30th after the Wolves' 13-point win in Denver on Friday night. And honestly, it felt like a lot more than 13 points. It was a lot more than 13 points. The Wolves were dominant end-to-end last night in a time that they needed it in the standings. I think they needed it from the stink in the air going on around this team right now. The win not only pushes them back into the number one seed in the West, but puts them in a very advantageous situation from a tiebreaker standpoint that honestly, I haven't even looked at that closely. I just know that that's true. It's been a wild week. I guess it's only been 48 hours. Felt like a month. I got Kyle Theige here with me this morning to do a little bit more normal, maybe a little bit more fun of an episode for this week. What's up, Kyle?
What's up, man? Yeah, I was thinking this morning because I watched the game this morning, right? So we're doing this at 7 o'clock a.m. on the West Coast. But just, yeah, like what a crazy 48 hours. And also, shout out to you a little bit. I know you're doing your fourth pod in 48 hours. Little Jimmy Butler meme there. Third from some random hotel in Denver that appears to be located near, station 9 3/4 with the train in the background. But
yeah, I'm gonna have to, if there's train noises that come through, that like a light rail. I guess, is that do they call light rails everywhere? If it's,
yeah, I think, yeah. I don't know. We'll get IT on that.
You'll be able to hear it. You'll be able to hear it. It's gonna come.
But no, what, and we'll I think at the end today we'll probably just catch up on just what you and I have been doing the last 24 hours. But
sure.
Yeah, to happen to kind of go back in the timeline quick to talk about last night's game. They win that game on Wednesday. They get to 50 wins for, I think it's the fifth time in 35 years. Like, Wednesday night, I always joke about dude in the playoffs. Well, I always say, well, this team has never even done it in the regular season. They get to 50 wins. It's an achievement. You celebrate it. You wake up Thursday morning, and then boom, you're just punched in the face again. And to have to kind of recover from that, go on the road against the defending champs. They'll tell you that they were without Jamal Murray. Ant will tell you that they were without Karl-Anthony Towns. And not to call last night the best win of the season, but as these games go to Game 72, Game 73, Game 74, they kind of become the most important game of the season with all the tiebreaker ramifications moving back into first place. And to see a team that had a lot of distractions off the court look so composed, mature, professional, locked in, words we have not described this franchise very often, on the court was incredible. I mean, they really, after that first quarter, kind of throwing blows back and forth, it was over. It was over at halftime. And you were there, I wasn't, so just do a lot of the talking. I thought the pregame stuff too, like with Finch.
Oh, it's hilarious. And Mike Malone too. Oh, hold on. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Just want to hit that really quick here at the beginning. If you're watching college basketball this weekend and your bracket's busted or whatever, play some daily fantasy, prizepicks.com, or on the Prize Picks app, promo code Dane for a $100 sign-up bonus. Yeah, it was...
Walk me through it. We'll talk about the interview and stuff later, but you show up at the arena, you know what the vibes are. You just dropped a viral heater onto the world. Walk me through what happened pregame. What are the vibes and everything like?
Well, I mean, I've been excited for that game all week from the person in me that likes basketball. I think I really like watching Denver play.
Mm-hmm.
I really like watching Denver play offense, and I really like watching the Timberwolves play defense, and their offense is coming around too. So it was like kind of like, okay, we post the pod, that's done, deep breath, just go and watch basketball. And it was fun to just be able to do the job normally, go to Mike Malone's thing and whatever. It's you know how the pregame ones are. There's not really much to it. He's like 50 wins in Minnesota. I get it. I wouldn't sell the team either. It's like that he just gets up and leaves from his press conference, go over to do Finch's pregame. And, he was kind of cracking jokes too about how he's like, there's been nothing that is more the definition of above your pay grade than the situation that's going on with ownership. He kind of joked about it, but was serious, had a serious tone too. And that he's like, I don't think it's really going to affect the group, and what they're doing, what we've kind of been talking about, the on the floor stuff. I mean, talking to some of the players after the game in the locker room, they know something is happened with ownership, but I don't think Ant has like zoomed in on that contract that's floating around on Twitter.
You should ask
the
Ant on
90-day call option in the third tranche. Yeah.
Let's say ask Ant on Sunday after the Bulls game if he knows what the word tranche means. Because I don't know what it means either. So, okay, so and that's the one thing too, right? Like I've been very pro Finch because I think of all the other stuff.
He's good at this.
The managerial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I know people can point out X's and O's things, which I think those have also gotten better as the season's progressed. But I've been in those pregame things, and he is pretty, post-game, pregame, he's just kind of a frustrated dad a lot of the times. But to cut some of those jokes, I think he made a comment that, like, these guys don't listen to me half the time anyways.
Yeah, he did say that.
I think it was just the perfect person to kind of calm some of this down. But then again, pregame, whatever, you arrive, you get your coffee. When the game starts, I mean, that's about as locked in as I've seen 1 through 9 all season long.
Yeah, I mean they look dominant. I mean, they just look like the far superior last night. In the context of last night, I don't think broadly it's like the Wolves. They're up there, right? Mm-hmm. They are on Denver's level. They can have beat them. They can have looked good at it. And we can't say they're better than them. I still don't think we can confidently say they're going to beat them in a playoff series, but they have made it clear that they can compete with the Denver Nuggets, and they've made it clear that they have something for Nikola Jokic that the rest of the league doesn't. And that it's not the shutting Jokic down, right? That's not a possible thing. But we've been talking about this going back to last season and what Jokic's numbers look like specifically in terms of assists and 2-point field goal percentage. We are getting a sample size that really says, and we have an eye test, and we know how the way in which they guard him by putting the 4 on Jokic and having Gobert lurk. It makes sense that Gobert is going to shoot a lower percentage from 2-point range and that he is going to have fewer assists. In these 3 games this season, he is averaging 3.3 assists per game against the Wolves, 9.2 for the other 68 games he's played in. He's shooting 57% from 2-point range. Again, still good, but he's shooting 63% from 2-point range on the season. 30% from 3, 35% from 3 for the season. 30% against the Wolves, 35 against the rest of the league. And you go, okay, it's a 3-game sample size. But you go back to the playoffs last year, that 5-game series, and the assist numbers are down, and he shot 48% from 2-point range in that series. When in the rest of the playoffs, he shot 60% from 2-point range. They have as good of an attack to put on Nikola Jokic as any team does in the league, and I think with a margin. And what stood out I said when I was doing some pod this week that I thought Kyle Anderson would start this game and not Naz Reid, because we know we've talked about that being fungible in terms of who's the starting 4, who plays, in Cat's spot. But they started Naz Reid. They put Naz on Jokic, and they did the Gobert lurking thing off of Gordon. And it worked again. And now that's a third player that worked in the sense that it didn't get blown up, right? Mm-hmm. You now feel confident that that's an option if you're the Wolves in a playoff series against Jokic. And that means you have 3 options now if Karl gets back. We saw Karl do those playoff numbers of Jokic. A lot of that has to do with the job Karl did of taking the primary matchup against Jokic and the Gobert lurking off thing. We've seen Kyle Anderson do it with success, and now we've seen Naz Reid do it with success. They can play that way against Jokic at all times, or at all times that Gobert is on the floor, which, again, in a playoff series, can be 38, 40 minutes a night, and maybe even the other 10 minutes. You can do this, invert it, and kind of do that, slide Karl up to the 5 to be the rim protector and have Kyle or Naz on him. I just thought it was huge that it worked to be able to do that again without Cat, and to be able to do it with Naz, because Naz then on the offensive side of the floor, though he didn't have a great offensive game, gives you more offensive upside, right? In that vein, that was I think they really should feel good about the way in which they can guard him. And just from asking some of the guys in the locker room afterwards, like they do, not in a disrespectful way, but like they said it. Ant said it. Jaden said it. They feel like they match up well with this team, and they do. They just they really do. I think it's the best team in the NBA, in my opinion. And
The Minnesota Timberwolves.
No, I think the Nuggets are.
Okay.
And I think the Wolves match up with the Nuggets better than anyone in the league by far. And that's that gives you hope in the idea that if you can effectively stitch Cat back into this thing, that you can go into a Western Conference Finals, or if they play them, and it's not a pipe dream that they could win a series against the Nuggets. Not at all. They've earned that in a decently large sample size against this team, and I think they should be proud and confident in that.
In my opinion, I thought the Wolves shut down Nikola Jokic last night, and he had 32, 10, and 5.
Yeah. So,
you know I mean?
Sorry, I should have said that the scoring numbers are still good. The scoring numbers are still good. I'm highlighting the things that are down, and maybe that's me doing some stuff. I'm glad. Sorry.
No.
You said that.
I'm just saying that in the sense of when you earn the title of best player in the world, which I think he deserves, you don't stop those players. If you're the best player in the world, you never stopped. You're just the best you can do is slow down. And their ability now, and I'm glad you brought up the Carl thing too, just from last playoffs, to just throw multiple bodies at him while also not having to throw the best body at him and Rudy Gobert and let him lurk. I mean, he had a couple just volleyball spike blocks last night, again, into the paint. And I think it also keeps him, it's like when you play Jaden off ball a little bit, right? And Jaden can lurk, and he's fresher. I'd love to talk about Jaden McDaniels. Anyway, but for Rudy too, it allows him to be fresher and not have to bang the whole time. Because again, you watched last night, and it reminded me of like football, like in the trenches. There was I just got done watching the game, so this is fresh in my mind. There's a second quarter play where Jokic comes down and hits Kyle Anderson, like they collide, and Grady and Jim were like, oh my God, like Kyle moved back 6 feet. It was a collision. But that's just what you got to do, right? So, like, no one wants to have to do that 40 minutes a game. But when you can...
Naz looked like he did get hurt, like, multiple times just from those collisions with him. Like, that's a...
Well, there was also the one play that Rudy did guard him where they called... the flopping tech was hilarious. Just the whole sequence, if you go back and watch it, because...
Yeah, that was so weird. It was retroactively giving him a flop. Right? Like,
right, yeah. But so
how does that work?
Jokic does a move in the post, and it looks like Rudy flops. But if you watch enough Rudy now, and we are all Rudy fans, you're like, oh, he doesn't actually flop. Like, he just gets hit all the time. Yeah. But then he actually, if you watch the replay, Jokic kind of turns, gives him an elbow right in this specific spot of his body. Well, then Rudy went crazy because then there's a foul. There's a lot of chaos going on. Rudy's lifting up his, like, he's going full flash, and he's showing these black tape on his body, and there's like an X. And I think Jokic hit him right in the X, like right in those ribs, right? So I'm sure that hurt. But yeah, to call a flopping...
He had a big ice pack just like sitting on his lower rib cage, like leaned back in his chair.
He also did, if you want a quick vibes update, he also did a voice memo last night on Instagram for all the people. So when voice memos are going out, you know the Wolves are like back. I am curious. We'll get into the Jane stuff. We have a lot of other stuff to talk about. But you just said the Nikola Jokic versus Wolves defense philosophy. Again, just watching this game with one eye today at 5:30. But it also feels like, or it felt like last night, that they kind of also attacked him on offense as well. Is that something that you kind of caught? I mean, there was a couple times like they went at him specifically in the pick and roll, and like Rudy finished with his left, or like they would get to the rim. So, and that's another thing too, right? That is one of the other ways to, I mean, Jokic is so good on both sides, but to get him involved more on the defensive end, to just make him work more, is also kind of a smart strategy as you think about, you know, an iPhone battery trying to drain that 100%. Just making him work more, be involved in more actions on offense, to your point, because the Wolves' offense, slowly but surely, is kind of coming around a little bit more with all five guys again being threats, including Jaden. So I thought that was another thing too. But overall, just great coaching, great play last night against the best player in the world.
Yeah, I think I hadn't really thought about that part too much of like going at Jokic defensively. And I think part of that is like, I mean, I've watched a lot of the Nuggets this year, and like, to me, Jokic is like significantly better defensively than he was like a year or two ago. So
we got to make him work, though.
Exactly, but that's the thing is like, so the Nuggets defense is like top 10 this year, and we're like 2 years removed from like that team can never go anywhere because there's a defensive ceiling to it. And to Jokic's credit, he's not only gotten better there, but when I watch him play against other teams, he's a defensive weapon. And he was not, I don't want to go so far as to say he was a defensive liability, but if we had to choose in that game last night, if he was more of a defensive weapon or a defensive liability, you got to skew towards liability. So that's and we'll talk a lot more about the offensive, just kind of how the offense is working, in general right now. But they did go at Jokic, and yeah, you're right. It's I think Jokic and he had a lot of, I kind of sat in for his press conference last night too. He has a lot of respect for this team as well. And he talked specifically about the way, they guarded him. He shouted out the coaching staff. I mean, he's like boys with Mike Nori, so there's some of that, but like, I think he genuinely respects the Minnesota Timberwolves, and like that in and of itself, like just that's that flashbulb right there of the defending champions, the best player in the world. That team and that player respects the Timberwolves. I'm sure he still thinks and believes that they will handle the Wolves in the playoffs, but that is such a good example of what this season has been and the next level that this team has gone to.
Yeah, I'm biased, right? And I don't want to take anything away from the Thunder, but the storylines and the mutual respect and then just the talent on both ends, like I still think the Nuggets roster is just so damn talented, and they might have the best starting five in the league. But just that we deserve as like purists or basketball fans, like that would be such a good Western Conference Finals just to have those two teams. Like, if you just said, hey, like 7 games of that, because I do think Mike Malone is an awesome coach. I think Finch is an awesome coach. I think they would go back and forth. But last night again was kind of the polar opposite, right? Like the Wolves were fresh, they were focused, compared to when they played them the last time, which they're on like the second night of a back-to-back. They just come off that long road trip, still kind of dealing with the Carl distraction of just like not having their all-star power forward in the lineup, and they grinded that one out too. So now I know it's a small sample size, which we use often in so many different ways of analyzing this team, but every time the Minnesota Timberwolves play the Denver Nuggets, they come ready to play, and I think the Nuggets have tried at times to give them their best shot, right, and it hasn't been enough.
Kyle, it is 8 a.m., which means it's English muffin time. Today's show is brought to you by Stone and Skillet English Muffins out here in Denver, so I had to do Starbucks for breakfast again, which just a letdown, just a letdown. I was hungry after the game. You come back to the hotel and it's like, I don't have any food. Go to bed hungry. I needed a good big breakfast this morning. Haven't had it. And that's what Stone and Skillet is, man. I love them. I mean, I know we joke about it. We've been talking about Stone and Skillet for a couple of months, but they are a great English muffin. We've talked about it before. They sent us a big, as you call it, treasure chest of English muffins. And we just want everybody to, consider going to stoneandskillet.com. You can use promo code Dane. They'll give you 20% off an order. I just promise you, if you like English muffins, you're a toast person in the morning, like this is an upgrade. I didn't know that it was possible that there would be an upgrade in that category, but Stone and Skillet is legit. Go to stoneandskillet.com and you can use promo code Dane. Otherwise, they are in Whole Foods as well. Kyle, I know you love Stone and Skillet as well.
I had one last night at 12:30. It was just me, and I got some free bourbon, by the way. I don't know. I'm not a bourbon guy, but it was kind of kicked my ass. So I just had the cinnamon raisin with peanut butter last night, like 12:30.
Little cinnamon raisin and bourbon.
Catching up on a congressman hit me up on LinkedIn to say, great podcast yesterday, boys. And that's when I realized that I needed an English muffin at 12:30 at night. So yesterday was wild, but I ended it with Stone and Skillet. And everyone out there that hasn't tried it really should. Like you said, Whole Foods or go online. It is an awesome, awesome product and really, good for you. So go try it out.
Today's show is also brought to you by Your Home Improvement Company. Your Home Improvement Company has a windows deal going on right now where it's buy 2 windows, get 2 windows free. And we just want you to consider Your Home Improvement Company if you do have that home renovation project that you've been considering. Like we always say, keep it in the Wolves family. If you do have that you need to do and you're going to be doing anyways, go to yhc.com. Set up a consultation with them. You can call them at 844-270-7180. That's up on the screen right now. Also, bathroom renovation, whether that's just like you just have a small, shower or, bath conversion, they can do that. They can do that quickly. Or if it's a full-on bathroom renovation, they can do that for you as well. They're offering 30% off on their bathroom renovations right now. So again, if you are considering a home renovation, consider Your Home Improvement Company. Again, go to yhic.com or call 844-270-7180. Your Home Improvement Company, where it's your home made better. All right, Kyle, let's do a little Jaden. I know you want to talk about the offensive part of it, or we both do. But I thought that another interesting tweak in this matchup was that we finally got the rare Jaden isn't guarding the point guard game. And that's a product of Jamal Murray. I mean, if Jamal Murray would have played, I think Jaden would have obviously guarded Jamal Murray. But they were like, all right, it's Reggie Jackson out there. We can put Mike on him and we can have Jaden off ball being that weak side rim protector. And guarding Michael Porter Jr. So it's not like he could totally leave him and he's not lurking at the rim like Rudy is off of Aaron Gordon, but he can, right? And I think that's super important. It makes it so in any situation, almost any situation where Jokic is trying to get to the basket or get to anything within kind of that 12-foot range, that either Rudy is going to be able to be there to help or Jaden McDaniels is going to be able to help Kyle or Naz or Kat or whoever it might be. And that's, even if you're the best player in the world, that's hell, man. That is hard. That explains why it's hard to get a lot of assists against the Timberwolves when you're Nikola Jokic. That explains why your 2-point field goal percentage is going to go down against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm really interested by that look. And I asked Finch about it after the game and he is too. He's interested. He's like, we do put Jaden on the ball 90% of the time, but it is good to see that. And he's like, in the playoffs, we're going to probably try to go to that even more. That's another weapon. We've been talking about this for kind of like the last month, 6 weeks or whatever, because we see it occasionally. And whenever I see it, I really like how it looks. And I go in my head, I'm like, okay, you can put Nikhil on the ball, even if it is Jamal Murray, right? And then you can have Jaden off the ball in that sort of way. It's an added weapon to the defense if you can still survive at the point of attack, which this team can. Nikhil, Ant, Mike, Kyle, whoever. You can throw a bunch of different players on the opposing team's point guard, 2 guard, whatever that's going to do it. I think I was really encouraged to see that. And I think for the playoffs and when we're doing our playoff preview and we're thinking about X factors and this and that, that's a line item for sure is what Jaden's role can be and do. Because obviously, the Denver specific matchup, they didn't have him, at all last year in that series, and that matters. That's gonna matter if they play Denver again. It'll matter in any playoff series. But that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I joked at the top that both teams were without really good players, and they were. No Jamal Murray in this one, no Karl-Anthony Towns in this one. But it's also worth noting that the drop off from Karl to Naz is not as steep as the drop-off from Jamal Murray to Reggie Jackson, who I thought was abysmal.
That's a good way to put it.
Last night. But
he's not good.
but in general, I would just say if you can have stretches of time where Jaden and Rudy are both playing off-ball, essentially, and can just roam, it's over. That's my analysis. If they can both just be roaming around, kind of cleaning up other stuff, protecting the rim, floating around on the baseline, it's over. And last night, again, it's a rare game because if Jamal Murray does play, then to Finch's point, Jaden would have guarded him 90% of the time. But again, and this is now, I think, where we go defense, offense, back and forth. I think his defense is back to being. I mean, there was a possession last night in the second quarter, like 5:30 mark, where they forced a 24-second violation. 22 seconds of that, if you go back and watch, it's like the 5:38 mark. 22 seconds of that is Jaden just fighting around 6 different illegal screens from Jokic on Michael Porter Jr. as Michael Porter Jr. is just slapping Jaden's hands away, and Jaden's getting turned in all these directions, and then like he finally gets off the ball and shuts down KCP in the corner, and there's a 24-second violation. But his defense, to me, seems back to the defense that everyone fell in love with, and that's great. And I also think it's simultaneously tied to the fact that his offense is, how do I put this, no longer Andre Roberson-like.
And you're right. It isn't. I mean, it's been honestly an incredible offensive stretch from Jaden. And I asked him after the game, I don't know if you noticed this, like particularly when he attacks from the corner. Like I remember, I think it was before the previous Nuggets game, right? Like 2 weeks ago, I was looking at some clips from the first Nuggets game from in November, and they were kind of leaving Jaden open, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of these opportunities for Jaden to attack. Mm-hmm. And he had this one that really stood out to me where he's attacking from the left corner to the left side of the rim, and he like tried to like get up around and go to the right side kind of for a reverse. I don't know. He might have even made it. I don't think he made it, but I was like, that's not what it looks like anymore when Jaden attacks the basket, right? He's going up with that two-hand dunk finish when he's attacking there. And I asked him if that was like intentional. He's like, yeah, I mean, I have the size, I have the length, I have the ability to be able to do that. So he's like, I can't do it every time, right? But he did acknowledge that like he is going to that more. And it reminds me of Ant in his rookie year where Ant, I remember his rookie year, I would compare his basket attacks to Levine, where he'd like be up there where it's like, you could just turn your wrist over and this is a dunk, but you're doing like a finger roll. And that always drove me crazy with Zach LaVine because he missed a bunch of them. Ant didn't miss that many of them, but it like switched in the middle of Ant's rookie year. And I remember Saunders saying they were just like, they told Ant, go dunk everything, like get all the way to the rim and go to dunk. And Ant started doing that, and that's where it kind of turned for him. And I think it's not just like aggression from Jaden, but it's like physical, like being more physical when he does that and getting those finishes, getting that dunk. Like he gets that dunk on the first possession where he could pump and go to the basket. The next time when they kick it to him in the corner, in my mind, the likelihood that three goes in doubles. You know what I'm saying? Like Jaden is such a competence offensive player. And I mean, it's what he's not. It does look Roberson-y, you know? But when he is, whatever, Dylan Brooks.
I just gave.
Dane it's not.
No, I'm with you. Roberson was a career 25% 3-point shooter, and Jaden shot north of 31%.
I know, and I always say, Dylan Brooks. Jason
I'm just making fun of. Listen, no one has. 12 months ago, as March Madness was winding down, I called the Denver Nuggets Purdue. Okay, I said they were a fraud one seed, then they won the title. Now Purdue's good this year, but no, I'm just giving you shit. But I do think. I had a callback for you. I wanted to bring this up yesterday, but when they played the Pistons the other night, you were there. They got really 3-point happy randomly. Like they just started taking a lot of threes. That's kind of been their ethos for a little bit since Carl went out.
Stop doing the aggressiveness to the rim, right?
But there was one possession where I think Grady or Jim on the call was like, you can go to the basket because they're just clanking 3 after 3 after 3 in the first half. Mm-hmm. And there was a possession on the right wing where Jaden gets the ball and does just go to the rim. And it also like kind of reset the thing. I think they went on like a 10-2 run after that. But this is hyperbolic in the moment, blah, blah, blah. I thought last night was one of Jaden's best offensive games, and it had nothing to do with, yes, he scored 17 points and all that stuff, but he was just a half step quicker and crisper. Mm-hmm. He kind of played like Naz. Like he got the ball, and it was shot up or it was attack. And he had a couple different attacks to the rim. You don't really see him draw fouls, by the way. And he had one in the first half where like he got Aaron Gordon kind of in the mid post, pump fake, didn't get him, pump faked again and got Aaron Gordon up in the air and then got 2 free throws. You don't really see that. So I think for him, yes, you're right. He's a confidence player. even when his defense is bad, it's still borderline all defense. And when
Yeah.
his defense is good, he's one of the 10 best defenders in the league. And I'm glad, I'm just, again, pettiness aside, like I'm just glad that this is where he has rebounded to, because my whole complaint and the reason I was such a douche was when anything good happens with this team for 2 to 3 weeks, cynics will be like, small sample size. Jaden was trash for like 2 or 3 weeks. But then again, like going back and making fun of the Roberson comps or the Dylan Brooks comps, but he's not trash. He's shot, 31% at his worst from three over a season. He had 9 20-point games in his first 3 years. He's got 7 this year, right? He's probably going to finish with 9 at the rate he's going. So he's going to have as many 20-point games this season as he has in his first 3 seasons. So it hasn't always been pretty, but, I remember 6 or 7 people that wanted to fire Finch after the Hawks game. And to want to get rid of this guy who last night, again, just shows you he's a cheat code. I mean, what Aaron Gordon does for that team, for Denver, and his ability to just guard and be crazy athletic and do all these little things, Jaden does that as well, but he plays better defense, and he's not I think Aaron Gordon's shooting 22% from the corners or from 3 all season. That's not Jaden. I mean, that is Roberson-like, and Jaden's at his worst 31%. So it's good. We're all, on the same page now. It's good that he's playing like this, because if your 5th option, which we have deemed him for his whole career, maybe, or at least this year, if your 5th option can give you 17 points on 70% shooting, it's over again.
Right. I think that goes into the bigger offensive conversation, right? Because the offense is just since Jaden has really turned a corner, the whole offense overall has looked so good. They had no turnovers in the first half.
I think it was sure. So I think it was 17 assists in the first half, 0 turnovers. It was 11 assists in the first quarter, 0 turnovers. And that's another one. I know I just keep saying like it's over, but it really is with how good this team is. If they come out and have 11 assists in the first quarter and 0 turnovers, I know that they've choked away some leads. It's kind of like, okay, what's on Netflix type thing, because that tells you, yes, they're playing good basketball, but to me it signals more than anything that they are locked in. And they're playing basketball the right way, because 11 assists in a quarter is a lot of assists. And to just be moving the ball, playing Finch's style of offense, not getting ISO heavy, I mean, that's just the purest of basketball that they can play.
It was 17 assists on the first 19 made baskets. John asked Ant about that and just kind of like the ball movement being up. I actually asked Ant later in the scrum, like about turnovers being down, and he basically had the same answer to both questions, both which tied to Naz Reid. I'll play the first one from John.
Had 17 assists on the first 19 makes. Like, what is working so well ball movement-wise just to kind of get you guys going?
Naz does a really good job of, when we hit him at the top, going to the second side, and I think that just, sets the tone for everybody. Like, even myself, like when I see him catching it and going to the second side, I'm telling myself I can't come down and just shoot it one time. I got to play through the action. So he does a great job of setting the tone.
And that is basketball jargon for what we were talking about with Naz being so decisive, right? And we all see that. We all understand that. The ball does not stick in Naz's hands for long ever, right? And that's and what Ant is saying there, and I just want to say it first, like that is not a shot at Cat at all. He went on later in before that, I think it was in the interview, talking about how Cat's like the best player in the team and how they need him back so as to be able to assess, how good they are and being able to compete with the Nuggets. But the part that sticks out in that to me is not Naz's willingness to keep the ball moving, move it to the second side and go. It's that Ant said seeing Naz do that changes how he plays. And we see that too, right? We're watching, we all see that happen. And that is the ethos of the offense that they need to keep at once Cat is back. And Ant needs to keep that in his head, and they need to keep playing that sort of way, because not because Cat can't do a lot more than Naz, he can. It's that playing that way will allow Ant to do so much more efficiently. When Ant isn't doing the bad shot selection things that come from the ball getting sticky. He is a whole nother level of player. And I just think it's super important that they keep the ball moving in that sort of way. And that will keep the turnovers down, because it will then be less of the isolation drives from not just Cat that lead to offensive fouls sometimes, or not just the drives from Ant that lead into clusters of players and turnovers there. Like, I thought that was really interesting, because that really matches my eye test and matches my like idea of what they need to do, to be a really good team in the playoffs too.
The relationship between Ant and Carl has been described by many, including Ant, as like a big brother, right? Carl's kind of Ant's big brother. And I thought that was like the best quote out of a night full of really good quotes last night, what Ant just said. Because, if your older brother drives around without a seatbelt, you probably are like, well, I don't need to wear a seatbelt. That's my guy. Like, that's who I look up to. I do think, it sounds silly, but Ant this goes back to my point guard thing, right? Where all 4 years in the league, he has played alongside really good point guards, Rubio, Russell, really important people. And I think that stuff has helped mature him to, we kind of got into it once about what Shea was doing at 22. No one, like, people don't win 50 games and be MVP candidates at like 22, what he's doing. And I think all of that comes into when he just looks around and it's like, okay, Naz plays this way. Like, if all 4 other guys on the court are moving the ball, Ant's going to just be like, well, why would I just hammer the thing into the ground? So I do think that when Carl comes back, like you said, there's still so many things Carl can do offensively that Naz just simply can't. And that's fine, because one of them was the first overall pick and one was undrafted. But when Carl does come back, Jim was pretty on this last night on the call too, that you probably didn't hear. He was like, I hope Carl's watching this, or I hope he's learning what Naz is doing and just his decisiveness. That was the word he kept bringing up. So when Carl comes back, it's the same. Carl's still maybe the greatest shooting big man of all time. But when you get the ball, it either goes up or it goes, on a dribble, or it goes somewhere. It's not holding it and kind of, quarterbacking and seeing what does the whole court look like. You need to know that already before the ball touches your hands. So as soon as it touches your hands, you can make a throw or you can go to the rim.
Well, you said a couple times of like how it felt in the first half that it was over. And when I felt that way, it was after those possessions on offense by the Wolves, the ping, 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 ping,
Yep.
And just the way they're moving the ball and like not only understanding what like the chessboard is, but kind of like having it memorized with their eyes closed.
That exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, let's be real, it didn't look like that in the first half of the season, like hardly ever. And that's because we're playing a different game when Cat was out there, right? It was, I don't know. And I don't know if to some extent it has to be that way. Because Cat does provide value for you in isolation and in the driving game and that too. But this is laying a blueprint out of how to play offense that benefits the group as a whole. And it's a little hard for me to picture Carl doing that, but it was hard for me to picture Carl being able to guard at the 4. It was hard for me to be able to picture Carl seating the number 1 spot in the pecking order of that. And to his credit, he has. He's done all of that stuff. He's taken on largely and pretty consistently doing the job that Finch and them are asking him to do. And you also have the excuse of like, when he does get back of, I'm not 100%, and maybe I can just be a mover and a shooter to start. And there's going to be a time in a playoff series or a game where you do need Cat to just punish a matchup. And he will be able to do that in ways that Naz can't. I don't know. I just have so much more belief in the offense. I have hesitation in the idea that, it's not going to be this exact group that's playing in the playoffs, but I believe, I didn't believe in the offense at all for the first half of the year. And I do. I believe in it. I believe in it now. It's because it's different.
Yep.
And the numbers bear that out too.
But to your point of listing things that you 3 weeks ago, 3 months ago, 3 years ago didn't think Carl could do, that he's kind of checked, I do think people listening to the game last night, There's a lot of cynicism into, is Karl really going to change? I mean, I think 3 weeks ago, I didn't know if Ant could do this, right? Like, I don't know if Ant could get off the ball quicker and not be so, dribble, heavy ISO. And he has just been like, oh, this is actually easier, but it doesn't hurt my numbers.
Yeah.
And if I just want to win, I mean, again, he still had 19 shots last night, 25 points. Like, he was still all over the game, but you don't have to have like this usage rate that's like Doncic level to still be an MVP candidate, to still win 50 games, to still be the face of the league. And so to your point, like, every time Karl has kind of been, I don't know if he can do that. I don't know if he can do that. I am clearly optimistic or open-minded to the fact that when he comes back, a player that seems to always say the right things, that he'll be like, hey, listen, this is humming. And all I have to do, I mean, if Karl comes back, let's say playoff time, and is just as good in all areas as Naz Reid, that's a win in of itself.
Huge win, because Naz then goes into the bench and takes up the bench, and not to take away from the bench, but like then he eats up. It's an upgrade to go to Naz Reid over like the Jordan McLaughlin, Monte Morris, even Nikhil, some of those, like, they won't have to backfill Naz's production because they will have Naz's production off the bench. And Naz is going to be even more productive in that role than he was previously, because now they've seen him do more things that they are going to ask him. They're going to continually ask him to do, even once he's in a bench role. Like, Naz isn't going to fall off once Karl gets back. He's just going to keep doing what he was doing in a different spot within the rotation, right? And I think that they're going to have to really push themselves to find a way to get Naz over 30 minutes a night, because that's an absolute must to me. And I think the answer is you got to play him at the 3 next to Cat and Rudy some. But the broader point is if Cat does just exactly what Naz does, then Naz can raise things up, because he's one of the best bench players in the in the entire NBA.
Just on the topic of last night again, I know now the game has ended. 111-98 Wolves, 51-22. They've only won 51 games 2 other times. All we have left in those stupid tweets I send is if they can hit 58 wins. I don't know if they'll do that. That Wolves team from 03-04 really got hot at the end of the season. I think they won their last 8 games. But just kind of circling back, putting a bow on last night's game and maybe this week from a basketball standpoint, something I had in my notes, well, 2 things. One, Kyle Anderson was great again last night.
Yep.
Talk about playing board games, like Chutes and Ladders for the first half of the season for this offense, Battleship, whatever you want to call it. Kyle Anderson's playing 3D chess now. Like, we talked about the defense in segment 1. That's partly Kyle, right? Last night he was going at Jokic. He's banking, kissing it off the glass. He's kind of found his mid-range again. I don't know. He was a team best plus 15 last night. I think that has to be mentioned as well.
And he's consistently been the highest, or one of the highest in plus minus in, I don't know, the last 8 games or something. I mean, he is, it's pretty much back to like last year, Kyle, and again, that's another question of like, how do you keep that same thing going and happening once Karl's back? Because, then Kyle has to play the 3 more. I would say don't play Kyle at the 3.
Mm-hmm.
Do Naz at the 3 in those minutes, and then play Kyle, still find him minutes, at the 4. But I think they're figuring out how to use him more. He's figuring out how to play offense in a way that he doesn't look like his confidence in his shot is shattered. And it's, that's making a huge difference on the offensive end too, for sure.
Yeah, whichever owner was responsible for the Kyle Anderson signing deserves a raise. I know that's been a hot topic. But no, so to circle it all back, to close out this week, to close out this month, because I know the Wolves do play on Sunday, March 31st, but the next time you do a pod probably will be with Chris, right? Monday morning or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's since Karl left or since he got this haircut, but when I watch Ant now, he's just less funny. And I say that in a way of like, I've never seen him. There have been more serious, I talked about that 24-second violation thing. There have been more serious chest flexes and all these things in the last couple of weeks. He seems like a guy that something clicked, and he went from, I just love playing basketball, I love entertaining people, to like, I love the taste of winning, and I don't ever want to eat anything else. Have you, being around this team as much as you do on the road at home, do you see like just an uptick in a 22-year-old figuring it out and being so determined to just win basketball games?
Yeah, I mean, yes. In the Detroit game, no.
But
The
that's
opposite.
he just.
I know. I'm just
that's a good point,
prefacing
though.
with
Good point.
that. It's like
the Blazers game too.
It's selective. It is somewhat selective, but I honestly think that doesn't matter in the context of the playoffs, right? Because you're never going to play the Blazers or the Pistons or anything that resembles that, in the playoffs. So yes, I do see it, and I like. You just believe that an Ant in the playoffs, right? Like he's one of those players where you're like, there's no world in which you could be like, they got into his head and, Ant had a bad series. And, you're talking about him like they're talking about him on ESPN. Like they talk about Harden, who when he was a great player in his own right, you know, but like in the playoffs wasn't like, that's not Ant, he has enough answers mentally and an IQ standpoint to be able to figure it out. And then obviously that is just so bolstered by his physical ability and then also just shooting ability that like, yeah, I mean, those possessions like that play on KCP in the corner defensively, like, yeah, if it's just one-on-one and Ant wants to play that possession with you one-on-one, again, can't be a screen. That's going to mess things up. But like, I'm taking Ant.
Yeah.
I'm taking Ant in that spot. And he is. It's like he is growing up.
It's crazy.
We are right to be like, when Ant starts doing something that's good and new, we shouldn't assume it's a flash in the pan. We should assume it is a growth based on the maturity of who and how he is, because he is literally coming of age, and yeah, I weirdly like see it in interviews now. I mean, you've been there for this before. Like Ant used to complain about doing media all the time
because he didn't get it. Like he didn't get the purpose of it and what you do or whatever. But he did. He was like, I don't want to do this. Yeah,
and what like honestly, I get it. Like I wouldn't want to do it a lot too, particularly when you're losing and stuff like that. I mean, I don't want to be in there. Like, all right, 7 losses in a row. Like, what happened tonight? Like,
what happened tonight, Luke Ridnour?
But like, something happened in Ant and probably had good people in his ear from the organization or in his camp or whatever, where it's like, no, this is actually part of coming of age and doing it. And Ant, he's always been charismatic in that setting, right? But now he's like, I think he understands he's a spokesman for the team and for the league and for that, and that stuff matters. So I mean, I don't know. We could list off a bunch of different ways in which Ant is growing, but that he is growing is what matters, and that's what should scare teams in the playoffs.
He got into the mid-range last night, first half, maybe first quarter. Everyone collapsed on him, and he threw the perfect lob to Rudy. And the reason this stood out is because it was a great play, but he was psyched about it, and he like chest bumped Rudy on the fly while the game's going on. And to me, it just kind of showed like passing a test where it's like, yo, I've been studying for this thing for so long and I passed it. Like, hell yeah. Now, I just went on this rant about how mature he was. I don't know if you caught this in the game. He also stood at the free throw line with like 19 seconds left and was begging Finch to let him shoot a left-handed free throw, to which he did not do. So that, that's like the 3.5 steps forward, 1.5 step back, but he did shoot it right-handed, so he didn't defy the basketball gods. But no, I mean, just Carl goes out a couple weeks ago to go on that road trip to play as well as they have. We haven't even gotten into this 49 minutes in, but like, to regain first place in the West, a place that you have been more this season than any other team, right? Like they have owned the first place for more than the Nuggets or the Thunder. It's going to lead to a wild last 9 games. You don't want to peak too early. There are still multiple weeks left of this season, but you also don't want to be playing some of the basketball that you're seeing from, the Suns or some of these other teams that are kind of limping in. So
even
all
Denver.
in all, yeah, in Denver, that's a great point. So all in all, a great week of basketball on the court for the Timberwolves, and we'll see if they can parlay it into the month of April.
We wanted to just kind of, I guess, reflect on the ownership stuff, reflect on from the week, just quickly here at the end of this episode. We can't go too long in it. I have to go to the airport, but I just want to say thank you to people. That is the most praise and nice things that have been said to me in my entire time doing this. And it's cool. You know, it means a lot. I can't respond to it, particularly yesterday. Like couldn't respond to it, but I know the people who, probably the people who, if you were excited about us doing that episode, you're probably the person who's listening to this right now, even 50 minutes, into this episode on a Saturday morning. Like, honestly, just thank you to all of you for one, just like caring enough about the Timberwolves to listen to a podcast. But I really got the sense yesterday that you guys all cared about us too. And it means a lot. So thank you to everyone out there.
Yeah. Yesterday was crazy. Right,
bro.
Like, I mean, if we'll do a pod one day on how it all broke down, but like it was about this time 24 hours ago when you called me and was like, hey, we might have to change your plans. I had a tea time yesterday. I have a job, by the way. I didn't do that very well yesterday. But no,
thank you. Honestly, thank you. And like, again, to everybody who's listening, like, that doesn't happen first and foremost without Kyle and what he does to help me run this whole thing. He does. I can't be a reporter and run this stuff all by myself. I don't know. Maybe somebody else can. I can't do it. Kyle is hugely important with that. And then Cooper Carlson and Cam Cresco, who work for us on the back end, doing YouTube and our social stuff too. Like, honestly, major thank you to Cooper yesterday, who was
he's a legend.
I mean, we had to be quick with that too, and we wanted to, get that up. It's not just like, all right, write your story, hit publish, and it's up. There was a lot of stuff that had to go into that. But honestly, Kyle, to you, thank you. And I'm glad that you were there too. You deserve that shine too.
Oh, I appreciate that because I was finally able to catch up on all the quote tweets on the podcast tweet and the comments, and a lot of people reached out again, from fans to people with the team, or just, again, a congressman from Indiana who I was not well aware of prior to yesterday. But there were a couple people that thought I just hacked the Zoom link and just kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen the meme with the 3 dragon heads, but it's like Dane and then Mark and Alex, and then I'm like the silly goofy one. That's kind of how it felt. But no, yesterday was, and also too, just to kind of circle back 24 hours after I've digested. I don't even think you've really had time to digest. So I'll let you have more time. But I think the important thing for me, and when we were talking about this all day yesterday, and we got to give, you just thanked a lot of people. I want to thank Dan Bowling, who helps, support this pod with the Genesis company, but also was just kind of helpful yesterday. Yesterday was the most professional thing we've ever done, right? I put on a jacket for a podcast, not pajamas. But we wanted to me, Dane, it was important because I thought Wednesday night was awesome. I thought hitting 50 wins was awesome because I am, as I said yesterday, first and foremost a fan. And to have that stripped away from you Thursday morning, Lucy, Charlie Brown, and the football, and to be thrown back into 34 and a half years of chaos and dysfunction was just so unfortunate to a fan base because we're talking about a lot of money here, and we're talking about business. And any business deal, transaction, ironclad agreement has stakeholders. All of the stakeholders involved in this thing, except one group, makes money. Players, coaches, executives, owners, whatever. The fans don't. And I thought it was really important yesterday on this pod. I know they did other, the Star Tribune, the Athletic. They did kind of the media thing. So I don't necessarily still know who was right and who was wrong. I have a glimmer of being able to talk to 2 people who really told me honest answers, what I believe are honest answers. But yesterday was important for the fans because Thursday was bullshit. And to have this team that has so much promise and plays such good defense and is coached so well and has a great executive running the shots with Tim Connolly, to have that be murked up, I mean, for you, right? You were trying to just go to Denver and have fun and cover this team, and to have to do all this extra shit was unnecessary to a fan base, the only stakeholder in all of this that puts money in and doesn't get money out. And I think at least today I woke up as a fan and felt like I have a little more clarity. This thing's not over. It could get worse. It could take a long time. But at least I now know more, and that's important to me as a fan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's going to be murky for a while. And that's an unfortunate part of this. I do think and again, this might sound stupid, but the sense I get is that like the drama is going to be on pause here for a little bit, like shots fired both ways. Right.
There might be a ceasefire a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think so, which again, I just let's forget about the rich people for a while and talk about us poor people who just want to watch the basketball, like we're going to be able to focus on that. And yeah, honestly, and what the players did for the fans last night, which obviously they did for themselves and wanting to win that game against Denver. Like, I don't know. I walked into that. We started the episode about walking into the arena and just like head spinning. And then, John and I walked out to get a beer after the game, and it was like, okay, like we're all right. This is like, we're going to still do basketball here. Like very cool to do the interview and to, even be in the mix and the reporting of all this stuff. But like those days aren't fun. Like
and
the last 48 hours it's really hard. So again, to like everybody, saying thank you and stuff, but like, just you don't have to get upset. And like, and even like with Doogie, like you guys, it's okay. Like, it's okay. Like this doesn't need to be like some battle royale where like inflict your animus at the rich people. Like you can disagree with the way that Doogie is doing his job. Doogie is doing his job, and it is extremely difficult to do what Doogie has done to establish a career and maintain a career and be able to do this. This sports media industry is fucking hard, man. And
it's nasty.
Yeah, man. And like people like us, and I get shit all the time. It's so, and whatever, like you can do your own thing. I understand like a lot of this. Doogie would say the same thing. It comes with the territory, but like, it's just, that doesn't need to be the place where you take out, or that would just be my ask is like, don't have that be the place that you take your anger out in, because like we're working hard. I know I'm working hard. I know Kyle's working hard. I know all these people, man. I'm like, Chris is grinding, man. Like we are not investigative. Like I think about John and Chris, honestly, who have to actually do this reporting and stuff. And this is a situation that requires like investigative journalism, and they are good reporters and can do that. But you know what they also need to do is cover the biggest game of the season. And and Chris then needs to write like a follow story the next day. And last week he's writing about the Glenn thing, and then Gupta's hard drive got stolen. Like, I mean, this is crazy. It's the weirdest team ever, but like, just, I appreciate the grace that you've like, you gave me and Kyle yesterday. And I just hope that you will continue to do that. And just know that like, I know these people, whatever my word is worth, like these are good people who I know I see are working hard. And I know all you at home are like, you work hard in your jobs too. I'm not taking away from that. And we are fortunate to be able to do it in sports, but like, this is difficult. I have not slept much at all.
And again, you thanked everyone like it was a Grammys award acceptance, but I want to thank you as well, because we talked about this when you were flying out on Thursday. Like, I think you can say that you work hard and you're tired without it having to be a comparison. There are teachers and policemen and firefighters and parents listening to this that I know your lives are way harder than us. But I also want to say, just kind of being behind the scenes, hacking the Zoom invite yesterday, this is the best pod for a reason, and you deserve your flowers as well, because that was not part of the plan yesterday. right? You're going to get a Starbucks Impossible breakfast sandwich. You're going to grind it a little bit and chill. And to have to do what we did and put on our big boy pants. And also shout out to Mark and Alex. Again, I know that,
Yeah, sure.
Mark confirmed yesterday right away in the pod what I said on Thursday before, like, no one that covers the team, whoever your favorite reporter is, your favorite podcaster is, no one saw this coming, all the way up to Mark and Alex. So when that type of stuff happens, we live in a society that we want instant notifications and gratification and all that stuff. It's going to take some time to iron out here who is right, who is wrong, and who is going to run this franchise moving forward. But I do think after what took place on Thursday with not just a press release, but all the other media stuff after, it was important for everyone involved, fans, players, media, to get another side of it yesterday. So I am appreciative that they reached out to you and that you reached out to me.
That's not how it worked.
I mean, I'm appreciative that I got to do it. So
yeah, no, yes.
That's a good point, by the way. But let me just clarify that. I'm appreciative that you were able to set that up. That this wasn't just seriously, if you're going to get into, like, this wasn't the ESPN car wash thing, right? This was, if you like Dane Moore, you should like Dane Moore today 100 times more than you like Dane Moore yesterday. And if you don't like Dane Moore, that's cool.
You should text that to Molly, who I have hardly talked to the last 48 hours.
I've talked to your girlfriend more in the last 48 hours than you've talked to your girlfriend. But good week, and now it sets up again. I saw Jake painting. I was messaging him last night because he hates this stuff too, right? He's like Brit. But like I told him, this is important, and he agreed. He's like, this is important to get that stuff out there. Get all of it out there now. It shouldn't be out there, like Alex Rodriguez said, but it is. Both sides now have taken swings at each other, and now the only thing that matters to me, the only thing that matters to you, that's why you were so frustrated Thursday, you just want to cover basketball. This is the first time in 7 years you've just covered basketball, and it's the most fun we've ever had. So that stuff now hopefully was a Friday news dump. It's all behind us. Let the courts figure it out. And for the final 9 games, and God willing, 20 more into April, May, and possibly June. That's all we want to talk about, and that's all anyone should be worried about, because all the other stuff is totally out of your control.
Yeah, and we'll touch on it when the time comes, and we'll try to make the right decisions about who to interview and when to interview. I hesitated on doing all of it yesterday too, and thought about it, thought it was the right decision. We're gonna try and cover this to the best of our abilities, and we're probably gonna make wrong decisions in that and do it. But again, we're figuring this out on the fly. We don't know what's going on. No one really does. I'm glad that we could help give some clarity to the fan base, or just give the fan base something that they, wanted more information on, or even just wanted to be able to see and read Mark and Alex's body language. Yeah. If nothing else, I'm glad we were able to. That's something unique that we were able to, deliver, that maybe just a quote in a story can't. So, I don't know. Maybe a couple of years from now, we'll be like, remember when Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez were going to be the owners of the Timberwolves, and we had them on the podcast,
Remember when Alex Rodriguez said, "Hey, Kyle, I listened to Flagrant Howls yesterday, and you call us broke boys." And I was like, oh my God. But he also did call me a scratch golfer before we hit record. So that's cool. But it's an interesting time, but let's focus on the basketball, because this is maybe the greatest season ever. And last night, again, despite all of the classic Timberwolves stuff that fans of this team are so accustomed to, the players on the court, the coaches, they didn't think twice about it. And if nothing else from this pod, that's what matters from this game recap, is that these players are not distracted. They have way more in their lives going on than, 3 billionaires fighting it out in the courtroom. So excited to follow these last 9 games, and excited to kind of get into April and do some live shows and do some playoff stuff and get back to our grind of, late night podcasts. So it's going to be fun. 51-22, first place in the West. Good stuff.
He's Kyle Theige. Follow him on Twitter at Kyle Theige. Listen to him over at Flagrant Howls too. I'm Dane Moore at DaneMooreNBA. Oh, we're gonna try and do a little bit more coverage of the Bulls game on Sunday via like our Instagram and TikTok. We're gonna mess around with that a little bit, like some more of day of content. I'll be tweeting out about that and doing that. But just a little bit more stuff. We want to mess around with that, kind of test some stuff for next season too. So that DaneMooreNBA _podcast on Instagram and TikTok, and so check that out for Sunday, and hopefully that's something we can make a staple of our coverage going forward. But until Monday morning with Chris, he's Kyle, I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the